Mara S. Campo, welcome to Jason Unleashed. My Libran sister, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I have been a fan for the longest time, so it's my pleasure to have you on the show. You are what we call journalistic goals, four-time Emmy winner, and someone who is just so emblematic of what the culture is. Beauty, brains, brawn, stick-to-itiveness, success, all the things. You are, if we go to Wikipedia and we think of black excellence or black and Italian excellence, we have Mara Escampo.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you. I receive it. I appreciate it. It warms my heart. Thank you so much.
Every time you deliver a story, be it GMA, Revolt, NBC, I always felt like I am watching something spectacular. And that's hard to do with news because news isn't always that. News is very just like,
Well, first, thank you for that because, I really did truly, when I was doing the day-to-day reporting, I really truly loved it. And so to see that it was received that way, it really gives a lot of meaning. So thank you.
yeah.
I decided I wanted to be a journalist when I was 19, because I was getting ready to graduate from college and I wanted a job where I could write every day because I wanted to be a writer. And I thought, okay, well, who's going to pay me to write? Like, if you want to be a novelist, nobody's going to pay you, so your book's done. And so that's what made me settle on journalism. It's something where I could write. I really, really wanted to travel. And so I started applying to journalism graduate schools. And what's a funny story is that I didn't intend to get into TV. I checked the wrong box on one application. So for the University of Maryland at the top, it said, like, do you want to do print, online, or TV? And I checked TV, but I didn't mean to check TV. And so that's the school I ended up going to. And I didn't realize I was in the TV program until the first day of classes. And I was in this like fundamentals of TV class. And I was in the studio. TV studios are dark and cold when there's nothing in production. Like the
Always.
lights are off, the air conditioning is all the
It's a
way up, and the
cave.
equipment, it's a cave. It was in the basement. And I was like, what am I doing here? I was like, I got to get out of here as fast as possible. But then I had my first internship in a newsroom, and that's where I really it felt like I was witnessing magic. It truly felt magical. And I was like, oh, I want to be here forever.
I get that, because the urgency, there's something about people, one, being in a room with people who are exceptional at what they do. And especially when you're in that learning phase where you're trying to discover what makes you tick in any facet of journalism. Like you said, you wanted to be a writer. There's people who want to investigate and be investigative reporters or want to anchor or love to be out and about roving reporters. But to see like great talented journalists work, it's like watching a choreographed dance come to life.
Yeah.
And for you to check the television box unknowingly, that was the universe, Mara, saying,
I
girl, I
do
got
believe
you.
that. I do believe that. Yeah. And it was, a lot, most people, when they think of journalists, they think of those in front of the camera. But
Mhm.
I was really getting to see like how a newsroom operates.
Yeah.
And that's where it felt like what you just said, like a choreographed, it was just so magical. Like there's this voice of God in the newsrooms that literally will come on and say, like, stations were doing this, channels were doing this. And I remember asking somebody, who is that? Because they would come on the speaker and say, like, stand by for a special report, but I never
Yeah.
would see this person. It was like the Wizard of Oz. And I said, who is that? And they said, oh, that's God. They were trying to be funny. They were taking it, teasing me, but it just all led to this like mysterious, magical sense.
In your journey, and I mean, first of all, your journey has led you so many different ways. You're a mother, you're a businesswoman, your digital presence is huge. People from all over the world love you. We're going to talk about the whole hair journey, but as a journalist, obviously, especially in a time where, our generation, conversations around inclusivity and conversations around being appropriate when it comes to, well, but identity politics, if you will, because being a woman of color thrust into an industry that for a long time, and even still now to some degree, was male dominated. They got the shine. They held the purse strings. They made sure that they were front and center with the woman being like, oh, you okay, sure, you can come on and maybe you could do the weather, or you can come on and maybe you could report. How did you navigate being you in a time where being you could have been frowned upon?
Well, the female aspect, being a woman, that was actually much easier for me than figuring out how to navigate the blackness because I very much when I was entering the industry, which was, at this point 25 years ago,
Yeah.
it also was a time when you started to see more and more women in newsrooms. And now I would say they're about 50-50, if not, I mean, of course, it depends on where you are. And I often worked in morning TV. I spent most of my network career in morning TV, so it's a lot more women there. But figuring out how to navigate my blackness was a challenge. And at that time, now we are more allowed to show up as ourselves than we have been in the past. So, for
Definitely.
example, you can wear your hair natural on television, you can wear braids or locks on television. That was unheard of when I started reporting. If I would have somehow slipped through the cracks and ended up on air with my natural hair, I would have gotten a call or an email from my boss the moment my live shot ended. And now that's not the case. But I was very much in the age of assimilation where I was taught by my mentors and people I respect and who were giving me the best advice that they knew how to give for the times was like assimilate as much as possible. Like try to, make people forget basically that you're black. Like
Right.
try to watch an episode of Friends so you can like talk about that, with your coworkers or, whatever it is they're into, make sure you're into it too, so that you can find some common ground. And so, it was not fun, but we really thought that was the way you had to be to succeed. And now I think we're still navigating it, but there's a little bit more awareness like I'm going to take up space,
Mhm.
and if you have a problem with it, that's your problem. And I love that, and I give all the credit to Gen Z for that. I mean, I love Gen Z for that.
Gen Z is zero chill
they're
in a
so
way,
they're
but
so
what
unapologetic
about
about everything.
but nuance. It's funny you bring up Gen Z too, because like I, in my former job, I had a whole team of producers that were all Gen Z. And they were telling me things like the conversations we were having about like, again, identity, LGBTQ plus stuff, because I'm LGBTQ plus, they were so, I was like, whoa, hold on. You guys are like just so nuanced and so resolute in how they felt about things. And it was just like, I have no room in my life to coddle you and make you feel comfortable about my feelings. Here's how I feel. Take it or leave it. And if you leave it, that's fine because I'm still gonna go on and be fierce, fabulous, and fun.
But they're so like, what kills me is the things they would raise, they would put attention on where I'd be like, oh, like you're completely right. Like, why did we never think of that? Like, you have to pay me to work. Like I worked for free for so long. I did free
same.
internships. I would work unpaid overtime. I would show up on weekends. Whatever you asked me to do, the answer was yes.
Yes.
And they're like, if it's not paid, I'm not doing it because it's work. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. You
Right.
should be compensated for all the time you work. So I just love them for that.
But when did you feel you had a responsibility being a Black woman to show up in a space for the culture and be that person to still tell the stories of the culture? Because
Yeah, I mean, I've always been that. I've always been trying to figure out how to, slide the culture in, whether I had to do it on the low or whether I could do it, in a more upfront and direct way. Always looking for Black voices to put into pieces, always looking for Black stories to cover, begging and pleading for the assignment desk to cover something that I knew was really important to our community, trying to explain it to them, making sure that nuance was addressed properly in stories about race. So it's always been like the responsibility has always been very, very clear to me, and I've never shied away from that. Ever. Like I'm about that life.
you are about that life. And it's important though, because there's been people who have stuck their necks on the line and have harvested negative outcomes for doing exactly what you've done, saying
Well,
this.
I've lost a lot for having this stance, for sure. For sure. That's why I have no problem taking a rest period right now in life. I'm taking the cape off. I'm handing the baton to those coming up behind us. Because I've given enough and I've sacrificed a lot, and I know that. And so now I'm ready just to be in my soft era. And no soldier lives on the battlefield forever,
Oh yeah.
right? You do your tour of duty, and then you get to go home and ride off into the sunset. Now, that's not saying that I don't intend to always find ways to support and uplift the culture. But right now, it looks very, very different. Right now, priority number one, two, and three for me is protecting me because
Yeah.
I need that right now.
Right. Wow. Wow. How did you bounce back? As you just mentioned that you've taken some L's. You haven't worked in this business or lived a life unless you have a series of losses. And that could be personal, professional, in a myriad of different ways. How do you bounce back? What was a time where you thought it was over? Where you thought, I can't come back from this?
Well, it wasn't so much that I thought I can't come back, but I didn't think I would have a presence in media in the same way after I left ABC because I was just tired. I was burnt out. And so I was like, I just want to do something else. So I was very much looking for like, what's my something else? But I really just needed to rest. And I didn't realize that at the time. So it wasn't that I wanted to move away from what I've always done and I've always loved. I just needed to rest because I had gone through, a challenging time. And so that was the time where I very much thought, like, I'm going to go do something else. Like, what is it going to be? I'm not sure, but it's going to be something different. But the universe has a way of, bringing you back in. And so that's absolutely what happened. And then things also, what's really nice when you let go is that it creates space for what the universe, God, whatever your belief system is, it creates space for that to show up and for you to see it. Because if you're so firmly, tightly held to whatever vision you have for your life, you may miss the detours that can lead you someplace amazing and beautiful and often better. And
Yeah.
so, because I really let go of the vision and the path that I thought I wanted for my life, I was able to embrace this whole new space that has been the joy of my life, which is the beauty space and beauty entrepreneurship, and so completely and totally unexpected. And if I hadn't been obedient to God's word, with speaking directly to me, I would have completely missed it because it was not in line with the plan.
Do you think, a word, y'all, that a word. Okay. So I have so much to unpack there. Okay. Back to letting go. So hard to do, and much like you, we go along this career and you have to work so hard for very little success, and sometimes
Crumbs.
sometimes you get to where you're trying to go, but everything in the messy in between one job to the next or one success to the next is you just honing your craft, working on yourself, be it physically, mentally, doing all of these things, taking the free jobs, putting up with rejection. And so we hold on so tightly to the dream because our generation, Gen X specifically, we were told you have to make it happen. No one's going to bring, especially if you're a person of color, go
Mhm.
out and get it. You want Jordans, get a job, buy your own Jordans. You want a college education 4.0, hopefully you'll get a free ride. Like it's
Yeah.
all everything was put on your shoulders, and of course we can carry the load. But we become this routine routinely based robot, or in this hamster wheel of go 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 go, I have to achieve, coupled with comparing ourselves to our contemporaries or our counterparts, coupled with everything else, working relationships, all of that we're afraid to let go, and the faith that we thought we had has been jettisoned because we feel like things should have shown up and happened for us that didn't. So what happens? You lose faith. But for you to say, I had to let go and rest, was it in that rest that God spoke to you, or the divine one, or whoever you believe in?
No, it was in that rest 100%. And it was, and I want to be clear because I don't want to come off as like, as more like spiritually,
No,
mature
no,
than others.
yeah,
My rest was like a very begrudging surrender. It was like like fine. If you don't want this to work, then I'm gonna sit here and not do anything. It's
yeah.
like
I
if you
get
don't
that.
answer my prayers the way that I prayed them to be, then I'm not doing anything. But there was surrender in it. And
Mhm.
that's the point where I was like, you know what? Fine. If this is the way you want it, then I'm just going to sit here. And in that moment, I also asked, I said, okay, well, what do you want me to do?
Right.
If this is not what you want me to do, what do you want? And then
Oh,
I listened And then I acted on that answer. And the answer was very, very clear. God said, find your joy.
Right.
And God said, find your joy every single day. Don't like schedule a trip somewhere fabulous. Like find your joy every single day. And so I knew what that meant immediately because my joy has always been the same thing, which is beauty.
Right.
Always. Since I was 5 years old, I would get dolled up for fun. And so I didn't think that was going to lead me anywhere professionally. I thought God was just trying to heal my spirit. But it turned out to do both.
Ah, see, that in and of itself has restored so much in me. And I'm sure people that are watching probably are like, this is the message I needed to hear because the begrudging surrender, we've all been there where you've just gone through it. Tweet has a song from her 2005 album, It's Me Again, called I'm Done. You should listen to it. It's incredible if you
Mm,
haven't heard it. And she's taught, and the lyrics are her saying that, like, I have no need for love. It stretched me more than a mile. I'm done for now. Love don't live for, like, she's saying, you know what? If love is not for me, fine. But as you said, and I've been there many times, then God, what is? Then what is?
right.
Because I've given, you've given me talent, you've given me this mutant power to connect with people, and all I want to do is use it. Use it. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, it's been, it really has been a very faith affirming journey because, and I say this modestly, it has become clear to me that this is my gift. Now, God gives you many gifts, but I do believe we have gifts that we are meant to share with the world. And when it first started to materialize, I was like, oh yeah, duh, of course, this is the one you gave me to share with the world because this is what's been in my heart for as long as I can possibly remember. Like it just, everything made perfect sense. It was like all the pieces of the puzzle just coming together and clicking. And the way that it was received by the world was part of that puzzle. Like it just took off like a rocket and everything made perfect, perfect sense.
Ah, so in that, I think you're the perfect example. I think you are the personification of when you let go and trust what is for you shows up.
What's interesting is that at first I was really, like I said, if I wasn't being obedient to God, I would not have done it because I was really, really afraid and concerned about what my peers, professional
Mhm.
peers, were thinking. It's like I'm posting hair tutorials. Like I just came from network television. Like, what are my former coworkers thinking about me? And I spoke to a good friend of mine, Kendra G, who had a similar trajectory. So Kendra has an, I don't know if you're familiar with Kendra, but she is a force. She worked in radio for 20 years
Yeah,
and then she quit her radio job. Now she's like millions of followers. She has an app. She's just a rock star. And I called Kendra and I said, and Kendra and I've known each other for 20 years. And I called Kendra and I'm like, I'm really worried that like my former coworkers and my professional peers are probably like making fun of me. And she
right,
said, they probably are. She said, but when you start becoming successful at this, they're going to be calling you for advice.
right.
And so that is, I mean, I don't know that people were making fun of me, but I do know from conversations I've had where everybody was like, WTF, where they're like, girl, like, I didn't know what was going on with you. Like, is she okay? Because it was such a departure
A
from what I was
pivot.
doing and what I was known for. And somebody texted me and said, after I appeared on Tamron and said, congratulations on a very successful rebrand. And I'm like, wow, that wasn't the intention. I was literally just doing what God told me to do. And it was terrifying and it didn't make any sense at all. But it did, rebrand me.
Throughout all of this, what has resonated with me the most is rebirth and who you are now and doing the research on you and watching videos and reading. You're a completely different human, but yet still the same Mara. But what have you discovered about yourself that you thought you would never see come to fruition?
Oh, that's a really good question. I wish you had sent that to me a few days ago so I thought about a really thoughtful answer. What have I learned about myself that I never would have, I would never would have expected that I could show up as my full self in a way that would be embraced and also professionally successful. I never ever would have expected that. And that is such a gift to my younger self. I wish I could go back and tell her, like, don't worry, one day you'll be able to fully show up as yourself. And that's a huge part of the joy that I'm living in now is that, there's no code switching. I don't have to, be one way in this place and another way in this place. Can just be me. And there's so much freedom in that. And I so wish that for all of us. And I really wish for a day where that is the case across the board in all workplaces. And until then, I'm just very happy to be in this space.